Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Welcome to Enhance International's Group's 14th in a series of webinars on building an evolving, resilient enterprise. Thank you for taking the time to attend, especially in light of the continued coronavirus pandemic. We hope that you and your family are healthy and safe. My name is Jim DeVries, founder of Enhance International Group, a group of over 40 consultants, consulting companies, and SaaS providers dedicated to empowering your organization's workforces. Our goal is to provide collaborative, experienced thought leadership to enable organizations to deliver self-sustaining, positive margin growth. We hope that you find this information useful for you and your teams and welcome your questions and comments to support you on your efforts. Since March, our webinars have focused on defining risk appetite, risk and resiliency, agility, the W recovery and the 3 R's for the post-COVID world, establishing building blocks to create an agile, resilient enterprise, how cybersecurity can proactively be addressed with an agile framework, and establishing a growth portfolio and developing a resilient growth strategy in uncertain times. We've also embarked into artificial intelligence in creating the resilient enterprise, as well as creating a visible, resilient digital ecosystem. We also looked at empowering our employees through rapid skills development, and we even had a fireside chat on supply chain risk and resiliency, addressing that with the W and 3 R's. Our next webinar will be addressing cybersecurity challenges using cognitive organization agility. And then we'll have some followed by some additional webinars on digital transformation again, maybe a fireside chat, resilient rapid skills deployment, and a host of other topics. So just to make sure you know that our past webinars are available free and can be found on EIG's webpage, consultingeig.com. Today, we are fortunate to have with us a highly respected leader in the innovation and new product development space, Dr. Phil Samuel, Managing Partner at the Lean Methods Group. Phil, a few words.
Jim, thank you for the opportunity. I am Phil Samuel from Lean Methods Group. Lean Methods Group, we specialize in 3 areas: operational excellence, innovation and design, and strategy and strategic planning. Pleased to be with you.
Thank you, Phil. It's an honor to have you here. Before we dive into the presentation, I just want to make sure that you have the Poll Everywhere website up on your computers. That's pollev.com, Greg Schlegel 910, a bunch of E's in there. So if you can go to your web-enabled device, cell phone's the easiest usually, or your another computer browser, another window. Either one will work. It will help you prepare you for answering the upcoming questions. So before we get into it deeply, into this webinar, we're going to talk a little bit about linking strategy to execution, because that's where we're at here. And you know, the EIG views there are 2 wheels, the strategy and execution in a company's ecosystem. These 2 geared wheels are connected by a chain, with the strategy wheel being the larger of the 2 wheels. But these 2 wheels are inexplicably linked and in sync, otherwise the chain will become derailed. Developing an agile virtual mindset will ensure that we get to our destination. Since the front gear strategy moves at a slower rotational speed than the rear gear execution, a solid strategy will result in many execution rotation cycles. That's what we all want. So the strategy wheel is composed of 3 major stages. Stage 1 is setting the vision and brand. Who do we want to be when we grow up? Stage 2 is setting our intrinsic value and understanding it, assess the current value of the company, and where do we want to go in the future. And then stage 3 is the operating infrastructure. What is the organizational infrastructure that we need to get us there, to reach our vision? The execution wheel is composed of 3 major stages: visibility, operational risk management, and operational risk and resiliency. In summary, a strongly linked strategy to execution ecosystem results in positive momentum for the company, its employees, customers, suppliers, and stockholders, the entire value chain. Quoting Albert Einstein, life is like a bicycle. To keep your balance, you need to keep moving. Phil will be focusing on the strategy wheel and the linkage to execution to support the development of new products, services, and business models in a virtual world. Even in this post-COVID world, until the new normal is established, we need to continually evolve our organizations to stay competitive. There is an ever greater need to innovate virtually. Phil will take us there. Phil?
Thank you, Jim. These slides will be available after the webinar for you to examine the full content. Our agenda for the day consists of 3 parts. Number 1, building resiliency and ideating through adversity. And that's all about finding opportunity in the midst of adversity, which is a key characteristic of the resiliency. Number 2, response to a shifting mindset of expectations. This is all about responding to changing expectations from suppliers and customers as a result of COVID-19. We will use success stories to illustrate both of these themes, 1 and 2. Number 3, digital collaborations, best practices. Let us explore the best practices while collaborating through digital means for ideation or improvements. So let's take the first theme, that is building resiliency and ideating through adversity. COVID-19 has presented us with an uncertain future that is unprecedented. There are uncertainties about supply chain, customer demands, customer expectations, and regulatory changes. Rules of the game have changed overnight. For some organizations, their demand spiked, while for other organizations, their demand plummeted. For some, supply sources have dried up, for while others, there is an overabundance of supply. How does a resilient organization respond to such drastic changes?
As Phil said, with COVID-19, it's an opportune time to rediscover each of our operating models. Resilient organizations adapt to changing conditions to discover their new future. Often new products, new processes, and new business models emerge. Each star represents a project or initiative that a typical company may be embarking on across the entire enterprise at any given time. The degrees of innovation, radical, substantial, or incremental, aligns to the sophistication that one is embarking. Note that this does not necessarily align to difficulty or level of risk implementing or executing the development of the project. The challenge is how to maintain the momentum of the projects that we still would like to move forward with in light of post-COVID new normal that is yet to be defined.
As Jim mentioned, many times new business models emerge out of such opportunities. To make sure that we have a shared understanding of what a business model is, let's explore what's in a business model. A business model has four themes as indicated by the color schemes in this slide. The first is the middle, the three items, the brand strategy, core offering, complementary offering. Together, it's called the value proposition. What are we promising the customers? The second aspect to the right side is the value delivery. How and to whom we deliver value. The third aspect is the left side in blue color, value creation. How do we create value? Who do we partner with to create value? What are our key processes and supporting processes? The fourth aspect of a business model is how we capture value. For most companies, this is capturing value in financial terms. And for others, it could be in some other beneficial terms for the organization. So keeping this in mind, the business model, and also you can have product innovation or simply process innovation. Let's examine some of the examples of opportunities and how organizations have created value around them. Here is an example of a company witnessing an adversity and turning it into an opportunity. Several communities in China have been under quarantine during the COVID pandemic. These communities have been cut off from receiving fresh vegetables and food supply. Instead of saying that is what it is, a Chinese startup company by name UDI, they saw the opportunity and has deployed self-driving trucks to deliver fresh food to these communities. The robot they use is an autonomous truck that uses lidars and cameras and deep learning algorithms to drive itself, carrying up to 1,000 kilograms of cargo. Their customers are very happy, and they in turn generate new revenues while growing their profit.
Another example originates from my family's home country, the Netherlands. Many grocery stores struggle with the following social distancing rule and the number of shoppers inside the stores at any given time. What is the optimum number of shoppers allowed for proper social distancing? What areas of the stores are crowded? What areas need a redesign? These are some of the begging questions for the supermarket. These questions were answered by the collaboration between ICIT, a tech provider, and Albert, the supermarket. With the help of AI cameras, machine learning algorithms, and deep learning, the supermarket is now a much better position to answer all of these questions.
A third, but rather surprising example originates in Switzerland from within the hospitality industry. Hospitality industry has pretty much all shut down due to coronavirus. Airlines have cut their flights, and the governments are telling us to stay home. Le Bijou, a high-end Swiss company that is a luxury hotel in part and part service apartment, has launched a very creative COVID-19 service. They offer customizable stay with add-ons such as in-room COVID testing, doctor visits, and nurse visit. They took an adversity, saw the silver lining in it, and turned it into an opportunity for wealth creation.
So the next thing we'll get into is a few survey questions. Phil, can you kick us off on this?
Sure. So we talked about the three different types of innovation: a product innovation, a service innovation, a, a process innovation that is internal, and then they have a business model innovation. Product and service innovations focus on something we give to external customers. A process innovation is focused on innovating internal processes for better efficiency and throughput. A business model innovation is one that is beyond product and services and may include revenue model innovation, partnership innovation, brand innovation, etc. So given that definition, we want to know what category COVID-19 luxury hotel fits in. Well, we already got some responses. It looks like half of our participants think it is a service innovation, and that's quite true. It's an external solution brought to external customers. It's also a business model innovation in the sense that we are changing more than two categories in that 11 components of business model. They are changing the rules of the game. They are partnering with nurses and hospitals and physicians to provide this service. So in that sense, I also agree that it's a business model innovation.
Fantastic. We'll go to the next example with the AI-driven supermarket.
So what category of innovation would be placed the AI-driven supermarket? Is it a process innovation? Is it a business model innovation? Or is it a service innovation? Go ahead and answer this question in the poll. Process innovation, 100% of you think that it is a process innovation. Very true. The problem they were trying to solve is internal to the supermarket. Too many people are coming in. Are we keeping social distances? Is there a particular place where we have too much crowded people? What's the demand? All of this get addressed with the help of AI, machine learning, algorithms, and cameras. Of course, customers eventually benefit from this. So very good job.
Fantastic. Thanks for everyone's support and feedback here. Excellent.
We have
one
more. Right. So this one is the UDI self-driving truck in China. So remember, they are delivering fresh vegetables to communities that are quarantined, they're cut off. Is this a process innovation, a business model innovation, or a service innovation?
Drum roll.
All right, 100% of you agree that it's a business model innovation. I concur. This is an example where it's not just a service. They had to rethink about the rules of the game. They had to rethink about many aspects of the business model to make this effective. So good job, good work. Thank you for the participation. If we look at all of these opportunities we discussed and several hundreds of innovations that came out during these unprecedented times, we noticed several key trends. The first trend is the merging of safety and fashion. There are masks that filter virus and bacteria. There is clothing that destroys virus. There are air filtering scarves. And then there are social distancing necklaces. Well, what's common about all of them? They manage to embed safety into the fashion. Second trend is what we call health and wellness. There is a priority on health and wellness. There are virus killing robots used to disinfect your inventory at the warehouse. There's a toaster that's available you can use to disinfect your cell phone without destroying the electronics. There are also many apps helping to relieve stress and making it easy to perform yoga and other activities. Digitization is accelerating at an exponential rate. Robotics and automation have come to our rescue in times of social distancing and quarantine. There are robot park security, there are robot nurses, delivery robots, and AI cameras that are keeping our society going and staying healthy. Another emerging trend is the rise of virtual reality. Think of VR office, VR escapes, and gaming. They now have, for example, Minecraft graduation ceremony for Japanese school children. There are virtual protests by gaming methods. We can also look at the key themes behind all of these trends. They are taking an optimistic view of what is going on outside and turn them into opportunities. And they're using agile uh, project management approach and sprint approach to experiment and figure out what works and not work. We'll have some discussion about that later in the webinar. They're also repurposing existing resources. For example, the self-driving car idea existed before. So they take that existing approach and repurposing it for another use. Our other example of AI being used to uh, regulate the social distancing, well, the AI approach is nothing new. It's repurposing, again, an existing resource to create new value. Well, we now move to our second theme, and this theme is all about response to shifting mindset of expectations. Our customers' expectations and suppliers' expectations and the expectations of the other stakeholders have all changed in the post-COVID era. So we want to explore what are some themes in those areas and how are companies responding to these needs. What we noticed is that there are a bunch of shifting mindset, and that is common about is turning physical to digital success stories behind it. So physical to digital realities is an one or first example of the shifting mindset. The resistance toward digital solutions and adoption are plummeting. Virtually everything has become touchless. Whether it is the thermometer we are using or the pizza delivery, it must be done in a touchless way. Companies must figure out how to deliver products and services in different ways than previously imagined. The new realities of working from home is compounded by stress at home, lack of social interactions with colleagues, managing childcare, and taking care of loved ones. How can we prevent disengagement among the remote associates? What are some ways we can collaborate with customers, suppliers, and partners in the new realities of post-COVID era? How can we accelerate ideation in this time? We've been told that we live in an abundance economy, but at this time it feels like a scarce economy. Here are some examples of how companies are responding to these changing expectations. Annberg School for Communication from the medical school has created a 360-degree virtual reality video demonstrating COVID-19 treatment practices in order to prepare medical staff in remote locations to respond to a possible spike in cases. In the past, VR adoption has been limited to simulate an interactive environment in settings that are often hard to simulate with the 2D graphics. Previous examples included special surgical situation in which a 3D visualization benefited the surgeon while planning for the surgery. Now, the VR approach has become available in the mainstream and it is widely accepted within the medical profession. To address the challenges of digital illiteracy and disengaged workforce, Microsoft has launched a new global initiative to bring more digital skills to 25 or million people. Microsoft plans to combine existing and new resources from its LinkedIn and GitHub units, as well as from inside the rest of the company, and making them available for free to those who are interested in upskilling and or retraining for new careers.
We discussed the shift in expectations regarding touch options. Here's a touchless elevator panel from a company in India. It is estimated that there are 3,500 bacteria per square inch on a typical elevator button, raising the potential for spreading COVID-19 virus. The problem is solved with Sparseless, a touchless panel. For outside the elevator, the unit is installed near the elevator buttons. You just need to put your hand below the unit and the elevator comes to you. When you're inside the elevator, Sparseless panel is installed near the existing panel. All you need to do is point your finger from a distance of about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch, and the floor will be picked.
Companies like IKEA are taking advantage of digital acceleration to pursue their digital strategies. A project led by IKEA demonstrates how our homes can be experienced in extraordinary ways through the means of technology, focusing on AI, machine learning, augmented reality, and cutting-edge spatial intelligence. According to Frederick Axon from IKEA, the future home should be about the people first. It's a place for everyone to be safe, to feel comfortable, and in control. Technology is quickly becoming a vital part of the IKEA customer experience and home furnishing offering. Being a value-driven brand, we focus on people and planet. As we enter a new digital era, we are also exploring new ways to create a better everyday life at home while protecting people's privacy.
So next we'll go into a survey. And Phil, you want to bring us through the survey?
So we're asking the question, what are the top 3 to 5 challenges that you or your company is facing with performing collaboration and ideation during COVID-19? So we made a list that is possibly in your radar. So we would like you to rank them. What's your top 3 to 5 challenges? So in your Poly survey, go ahead and move these items. You can use your arrow button and drag them up or down in the order of your priority. We like to see what are your top 3 to 5 challenges. Interesting. Looks like you are saying that technology challenges are coming first. We found the same. So we actually will talk about that as an interesting example and what are some solutions. The priorities that we, the workforce, are facing, they're not clear. Or there are poor communications within the company, within the team, between the team, especially when you're not together. Distractions at home. we have so many things going on at home. You may have children, family at home. You may have people knocking at your door. All kinds of stuff are creating distraction. So it's consistent with some of the things that we have seen. Jim, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I found it interesting that, timid ideation, we don't believe it can be done as low on the totem pole there. So I thought that was quite interesting that folks feel confident that their ideation is working. Okay, great. So just moving on, the last area, digital collaboration best practices. We'll be covering this area and we'll highlight these 6 themes. We'll uncover uncertainties early on, and then we'll get into staggered sprints, which are sprints within sprints, virtual collaboration, real-time ideation, how to gain instant feedback, and some facilitation tips. So first, let's look at success rates of innovation. And we know that they go up significantly when we can convert these 4 uncertainties into certainties. First, what are the customer needs? And what are those unmet needs? And how many customers are struggling to get the jobs done? The second is technology feasibility. And from that perspective, what are the most impactful yet feasible ideas? Thirdly, what's the most viable business models and how can we increase stakeholder adoption? And then finally, fourth, the stakeholder adoption perspective. How can organizations solve these puzzles quickly before solving the rest of the innovation puzzles?
In the last webinar, we introduced the concept of decoupling the front end of innovation from the back end. In the front end of innovation, we want to solve the 4 uncertainties Jim just mentioned. Well, that's not enough. There are other innovation challenges, making sure your solution is reliable, durable. If it is physical product, it's manufacturable, it is sustainable, and so forth. Those challenges are better solved using the traditional phase gate approaches. So we like to take our attention back into that front end of innovation where you're using the design thinking sprints to solve 4 uncertainties. What are the 4 uncertainties? Unmet customer need, best feasible ideas, creating a best viable business model, and creating a prototype that is, good enough to test our assumptions. So it's also called MVP, minimum viable prototypes, and then opportunity to test customers' adoption rate. So these are, we call the 4 sprints we can do to resolve these 4 uncertainties. And you notice that the uncertainties are, we call assumptions. And then certainties are called knowledge. So when we embark on this journey, the ratio of assumptions to knowledge is very high. It's a measure of risk. So we start with the first sprint, said, let's resolve the first uncertainty. What are the unmet customers' need? Can we precisely define them? What are the jobs customers are struggling to get done? What criteria will they use to hire a solution? And which are the ones that are unmet today? So very clearly understanding the few items that are unmet customer need enables us to formulate our value proposition around them. The second sprint is focused on discovering the best ideas. We want to collect a large set of ideas. We want to explore all possibilities. And then we want to converge on the best feasible ideas. And during this process, we uncover all kinds of uncertainties and turn them into knowledge. The third uncertainty has to do with, can we create a minimum viable product? Can we establish a business model that is feasible, that is viable? And let's also find out from the customers what they think of our solution. Are they willing to pay? Will they accept our idea? Are they willing to pay? All of those are questions in sprint 4. So these 4 sprints together resolve the uncertainties that are simply the highest priority for any innovation. So let me go into a second lesson we learned through ideation in a post-COVID world. So here is an example of a real planned sprint, the 4 sprints for a project with actually a group of clients together. So this was a plan, very linear, but then something surprised. The surprise was the COVID hit. And when the COVID hit, the whole idea of the 4 sprints had to be questioned for practical reasons. So what we created was take a sprint, usually define the opportunities is a 3-day sprint where everybody come together, and in a conference room, we look at the job to be done and we develop a list of outcome expectations, customers hiring criteria that are solution neutral. Well, we can't get people for 3 days in a virtual environment. So we ended up creating what we call sprint within sprint, or also called staggered sprints. It's typified by the bunch of red circle replacing one big oval shape. So we had to now take the teams and group them into smaller groups, and then conduct several sprints for each group, a 2-hour duration, 1-hour duration, so that together we get the same effect as one big sprint. Then each group looked at what are the opportunities, what are the ideas, what are the business models, and we generated a whole bunch of ideas, in excess of 1,000 ideas. And then they created a handful of ideas that could be turned it into minimum viable products, and then test them for customer adoption. Let's explore the third challenge in the post-COVID world, meeting together. So we can think about meeting together synchronous way, meaning at the same time, or asynchronous way, meaning meeting at different times. Well, technology solutions is one of the items that is preventing us from doing this very well. Well, we have synchronous solutions such as Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meetup, and so forth. That enables us to meet together virtually, and it has its own advantages and some challenges. Well, there are also other platforms out there, such as Asana, for program management, project management, and asynchronous collaboration. In the world of ideation and innovation specifically, NOSCO is another platform that is used for asynchronous collaboration. This portal allows you to scope your problem, generate ideas, and then prioritize them, highlight them, promote them, all done virtually in an asynchronous way. Let's examine the 4th challenge. This is about not just collaborating, it's really about, I want to ideate along with you. So if you look at this image here with idea flip, on the bottom right side, you see a wall full of flip charts. I'm sorry, not flip charts, post-it notes. We are used to this. That's the world we came in. Well, we are now limited. Can we do the same post-it notes and generate lots of ideas, read each other's, build upon each other's ideas, discuss them together at the same time? Well, you can, fortunately. Idea Flip is one such solutions. There are several others, but Idea Flip is one you can use it very quickly and easily. It takes less than 5 minutes for you to become familiar with the tool, and then everybody can work together. Here is another example. It's a Miro. If you require more bells and whistles, like putting your images up and building a value stream map, a process map, a job map that requires more sophisticated techniques, then I would recommend either Miro or Mural. They are both very powerful. It takes more than 5 minutes to learn, but it's very powerful. These are some examples of options for real-time ideation. Here is an output from an actual project for the real-time ideation. So we had our two teams, SEAL team and Octopus team, separately in the sprint within sprints, looked at the problems, and they organized the problem, and they asked the question, what are the barriers to solving this problem? And then they generated ideas against each of the barriers. A subset, a small example is listed here. For example, they're asking what are the barriers, the reducing the barriers to compostable packaging development. And in step one, they said, hey, what's stopping us from solving this problem? What are the issues? And that's step one. You can see they've organized them by groups and categories. And then they went on and generating ideas against each of these problems. They went through divergence and convergence, and then they did multi-voting and all kinds of ways to group them, analyze them, and then you see some solutions. Similarly, the other team went through it. So this is a practical real life example of real-time ideation. In this case, they are both using Idea Flip as their technology solution. Well, let's take a look at the fifth challenge. How can you engage the participants in the middle of all the troubles going on and people are participating from home? How can we add more feedback? Well, our recommendation is to add icebreakers, instant polling, like the one we are using with Poll EV, having breakout rooms where we separate the teams into smaller teams where they can have conversation, they can share ideas, they can generate real-time ideations, they can apply even gamifications. And eventually they come back together and debrief their ideas. And even in the main room, you can apply gamifications, add puzzles and challenges, and engage the team. If you happen to be the facilitator, you need to spend some time planning and thinking ahead and asking all kinds of questions and imagine all the things that can go wrong so that you're well prepared. To begin with, you must set clear objectives and clear deliverables. If you're going to meet for an hour or two, you have to use your time very efficiently. Also think about the participants. Are they all technology savvy? If not, you might want to consider some YouTube videos or your own videos or your instructions for using the technology, using instant ideation techniques, etc., so that it becomes easy when we come together. Also, when you start the session, start with the why. Why are we here? What's the objective? What are the deliverables? Also establish the rules of engagement, participation rules. How should they turn on the camera? Well, sometimes that's also bad because it takes lots of bandwidth. So you might create rules on when you will have the camera on, when you will have camera off. Creative mood boards, some way to get the feedback and show how people are feeling, uh, show diagrams or sketches and give some feedback. You need to make sure that you have support if you are having breakout rooms. You might need some support roles from technology area or facilitators to make sure that you have a successful facilitation of the virtual ideation. In summary, the key takeaways are four. Number one, every adversity is an opportunity for value creation. Instead of saying, this is too bad, can we think through using existing resources and to see opportunity inside the adversity to help the customers and also generate value for you, the provider. Every resilient organisms and organizations, they adapt to deal with adversity. Number three, virtual ideation is actually practical, feasible, and easy. We have given you some tips and how you might do this based on our experience. In our opinion, the best practices for virtual ideation include staggered sprints within sprints, real-time ideation, as well as instant feedback.
Thank you, Phil. And just to close out the formal webinar, I would say, from a company perspective, the companies that are using virtual techniques are the companies that are going to get ahead. If you're not using it, you're going to fall behind. You want to use this time while we're finding our new normal to gain your unfair market share. So just wanted to close with that comment. And then as we close it out and as you're chatting up in the chat window, your questions for Phil and I, just wanted to let you know again, this presentation will be posted on the EIG website, consultingeig.com. And if you'd like it sooner, feel free to email info@consultingeig.com. Some of the future topics are going to be in the cybersecurity, resilient skills deployment, artificial intelligence, supply chain risk and resiliency, and a host of others. So, and again, you can go to our website to see the 13 or so webinars that have already been out there. So I think that's given you enough time to start chatting up in the window. And as I look there, I see a note from Marcella. He says, great presentation, Phil. You mentioned gamification. Did you have any suggestions?
There are many companies out there exploring this space of gamification. First, you can use gamification to engage your participant during any session. You can also use gamification to educate or train people on various topics. In that context, one company I'm familiar with is called unboxedtechnology.com. So you might want to consider that one. But there are many others that I don't necessarily remember. There's also another area of opportunity for gamification, that is onboarding employees. You can use gamification to show the new process that the employee needs to be familiar with, or the new procedure. Instead of making it a boring presentation and the slides and the books they need to read, why not make it fun? So if you go Google, you can actually find several. But it's also an opportunity for many companies to create new gamification gamification technologies out there. I think there are plenty of opportunities to develop new gamification while there are some already available.
Excellent. Another question from Mark out there. He says, how would you handle physical prototypes in virtual, using the virtual sprints that you mentioned, Phil?
Yeah, that's a excellent question. You know, in the pre-COVID world, we were making progress with all kinds of physical prototyping. And the physical prototyping can be a sketch you show it to customer, a wireframe that you built in your software, you physically show it to the customer and get feedback, or you made 3D printing of your solution and you showed it to the customer, or a barely working or non-working prototype. Well, the acceleration of digital prototype is making new ways to replace the physical with digital. So if you have sketch that you used to draw on paper and showed it to customer, well, why not show the sketch on the computer and get feedback? Second, if you have simulations that can replace a, a physical reality, show the simulation to the customer and get feedback. Your 3D model that you are about to print out, why not show the digital? Well, in spite of all the digital, in some cases, you may have to have the physical uh, uh, made. In that case, if the customer is not available to physically touch and feel, you could have somebody use a GoPro camera, walk around and show the physical prototype to the customer remotely and have a conversation that way. So there's actually an explosion of all kinds of apps and methods to guide what we used to do physical and done electronically or digitally. A friend of mine owns a company that was helping with all kinds of tools for ethnography. Since the, the COVID started, his business has exploded. He lets people walk around with GoPro camera and app, and then everybody else is sitting back and watching the one person walking around and collecting feedback. So there's all kinds of new changes in the physical prototype world.
Fantastic. Another question from David. He enjoyed the presentation, like all of us, and he says he really likes Mural, and he says check it out. It works well for collaboration.
Yeah, I agree with David. If you need a little bit sophistication, then Mural is highly recommended. But if your audience are entirely technology naive and you only have a few minutes to bring them up to speed for ideation, then idea flip is easy. But if it's going to involve anything fancier, including building maps, adding images, then I highly recommend Mural or Miro. Uh, Agree with you, David.
And one last question from Mark. Have you ever considered sending kits to the team members to allow physical prototypes?
Yes, actually, it's funny you mentioned that. We have been doing that lately. So in the pre-COVID world, the rapid innovation sprints, we bring teams together. We spend 3 days together. At that time, we had physical kits for the team to work together. So for example, if you think about ideation, the discovering ideas, what research showed that when people play with toys, they're likely to come up with more varied ideas, diverse set of ideas than it was totally prim and proper. So fidgeting with stuff, playing with toys uh, are all useful thing to generate ideas or build models. So what do you do in the COVID world? So we have been figuring out how to do it by sending kits for ideation kits, we call it, to people's home. So we can see each other's through each other's camera what other person has created, and that's also a nice way to engage and also get feedback from the team members. Good point.
Well, thank you, Phil. Very informative. Learned a lot. And, you know, I think we are all looking at how we can accelerate and beat our nearest competitor, but also serve the customer as fully as we can. There's nothing that can stop us. We have the technology, we can make it happen.